Routines, routines, routines. We speak of routines like we've mastered them, but realistically, how many people know what a successful routine looks like? In my opinion, not that many people. We all know how to start something and stick with it for the first couple of days. So in that sense, planning and the initial execution is not the biggest issue. It's about continuity. If you wake up after some weeks and you say, I cannot do this anymore, this routine does not work. Well, that routine wasn't very successful, was it? And that's the reality for a lot of people. So I think we need to sit down and think about what a successful routine really entails. Welcome back to my video. This is a new type of video that I'm trying where this all is unscripted. I only have a list of things that I want to talk about. They're not very detailed, so I get to speak my mind. And the reason I'm doing this is very simple. I want to post more, but making proper videos that are scripted, fact-checked and all that is really difficult and time intensive. But now let's go and think about routine. What is a routine? A routine consists of two things. A routine consists of an activity that you do within regular intervals. An activity can be anything. Going to school is an activity. Doing homework is an activity. Drinking water is an activity. Going on holiday, that's an activity. The regular interval can vary. The size of the interval can vary. You can talk about every couple of hours, every day, every week, every month, or even every year. So if we combine those together, we get a routine. For example, I used to be a high school student, and during those times, I would go to school from Monday to Friday every week. That's a routine because I repeat that flow every week. But now that's not the big issue, because the big issue is what makes up a routine. Clearly, if we did know that, then we wouldn't have problems with setting routines. But let's dive deeper into what a routine might look like and how it even comes to be. To illustrate my first point, let's think about some goal. The big thing to know is that a routine is made to support a goal or to help you get closer to a goal that you have. So let's say that you want to become muscular, and so you make a routine that tries to help you gain 10 kilograms of muscle in 1 month. Do you see a problem here? 10 kilograms of muscle in 1 month is fairly unrealistic, especially if you're the type of person who sets that and has never visited the gym before. You are going to be strained out of your mind with this routine. You're going to be doing that and only that every day. And what does that lead to in the end? We will be burnt out and we will stop doing this at a regular interval. So we lose the routine. So the big thing about routines that has to come from the get-go is sustainability. It has to be realistic, and you have to be able to do it in a way that you can keep doing it at the same intensity in the future. If you struggle with realistic goals, you could think about time. Time is a very objective and good way to set a baseline for sustainability. So we've talked about sustainability, and now I think we need to move back a little bit because we need to focus on the idea that a routine supports a goal. Now we all have goals. I want to be a millionaire. I want to win a tournament. I want to be a champion. I want to get the best grades in school. But by themselves, they're just vague. That's the end point, but you are somewhere completely different. How are you going to get there? The routines are like your wayfinder, your guide. They guide you in the right direction. But the importance is that whatever routine you set up, you have to always keep this wayfinder narrative in mind. You always got to know what you're pursuing, what you're getting closer to, and that has to be reinforced through your routine. Personally, one of the worst things that could happen to you when you're starting a new routine is that you start something, you work really, really hard, and then in the end you don't know what it was for. Let's say that you are trying to get better at a subject that you hate. You hate it not only because you find it boring, but also because you're not planning to pursue it in the future. So you do a lot of work, it means nothing to you, so you don't really attach any sort of satisfaction with making routines that help you get closer to that specific goal. Now, let's say we've started our routine. Personally, I've had the issue of sometimes forgetting that this routine even existed in the first place. You know, sometimes you have these days where you're so busy that your mind is elsewhere. And that's really bad, especially when you have routines going on that are new, because they are not something that is just the part of your natural life. In the end, to be very intentional with doing routines that are new, you have to have many cues. You have to remind yourself all the time that you are making these routines in the first place. If you don't remind yourself of something new that you are doing, you're always going to act along your existing habits. At this point, you'll probably be asking, well, how can I achieve all of that? And we will come to that in a second, because I'm going to put this all in a context and we will refer back to this. However, I would like to discuss what happens in the end. How does a routine become just a habit? Like something that is a part of you. This comes through a lot of repetition, of course, otherwise this wouldn't be a routine. We have to do this again and again and again. Even if we are at risk of forgetting, we have to keep reminding ourselves to do this activity. There comes a point where you start doing this without reminding yourself. So maybe you forget the reminder one day, but you still do the routine. At that point, it becomes like muscle memory. Your brain gets rewired to then integrate this activity as an essential part of your functioning. Of course, it takes quite a while to get to that stage. Now we know what a routine really has to have in order to be successful. Of course, there are many other factors that you have to account for, but this video is more about getting a basic understanding of what routines really should look like. But the real question is, what kinds of routines are the most important routines? And this is a bit of a difficult question. For me, though, there is one specific consideration that I'm going to make, which is about the types of routines that follow after or come before an activity. When I'm playing a sport, my routine before playing the sports would be to warm up. After the sports, I would cool down or drink some water, do something like that. We can talk about this in the sense of pre and post activity routine. The issue lies in the fact that we have to adapt the routines all the time to reflect the situation. At some point, adjusting becomes much more difficult than just not doing the routine at all. And when we have this routine that is fairly new and where we have to put in a lot of effort, we're going to have more problems. Those problems being us skipping the routines on some days and hence not building that consistency that allows us to build muscle memory. But guess what does not change a lot? Daytime and nighttime. And with that, I'm referring to nighttime and morning routines. Those are based on things that in most of our lives stay fairly constant, which is our sleep. Because our sleep is well defined and we don't really have to do much to adapt the routines to different situations, namely because there are very few situations to adapt to. This is something where people who do not have proper routines or have never done that before can easily get into the flow of making routines. And then when they apply these routines to different situations, this adaptability thing will just come along. But now we have two different things to focus on. And actually having two different things is a bit difficult. We can focus on one of the two different routines to start off with. So what would I prioritize? A morning routine or a night routine? And I would say a night routine. A night routine is probably one of the most important fundamental things that you can start off with. And I'll tell you why. If you have a poor night routine, which means that you are stimulating your brain well into the night, and then immediately after that you try to sleep, first of all, your sleep quality is poor. Second of all, you won't be able to sleep very long before waking up, having troubles sleeping again. And then when you wake up, then it's extra hard. The morning routine is something that's dependent on your sleep. If you can't control that, then you will have many more difficulties in maintaining a morning routine that is constant, tailored to the time when you wake up, because that won't be constant anymore if you go to bed at different times. So you can see how the nighttime routine plays a very important role in regulating what happens the next day. But now the question is, how do we approach a nighttime routine? And there are many different ways, but there are some fundamentals that I believe you should pay attention to before you go on and create your own nighttime routine. The most baseline of baseline things is that you give yourself enough time. If you rush it, then it can be that your brain is still to an extent stimulated when you go to bed, which means that your thoughts will be racing, you will struggle to fall asleep because your mind is somewhere else, and then we have the same episodes happening again and again, even if it's to a lesser extent. Of course, the main goal is to completely eliminate the stimulation that you have from being chronically online, checking up on everyone else. And now that we talked about stimulation, let's focus more on that. Because a nighttime routine has the sole purpose of helping you recover from the level of overstimulation that you get over the day. You get introduced to a copious amount of information, and that wears away at your mental energy, and it will keep wearing you away because of its addictive nature. These thoughts and these feelings stay and linger for a lot longer than other things which may not interest you as much. Obviously, what this means is that during this routine, you're going to disconnect yourself completely from the outside world, from the internet, from social media. Be by yourself, be within your house with your family or whoever lives with you, with your partner. Get yourselves back into the moment. Let's not be so detached from the situation because we're reading all sorts of things on the internet. We get back our attention and stick it in our head. The reason that we stay up so late in bed, unable to sleep, is because our mind is consistently engaging with thoughts that randomly pop up, and that's something that we want to reduce. A good way of doing that is actually engaging in more physical activities. For example, if you were to clean the house, you pay most attention to the action that you're doing. It takes a certain amount of physical exertion, and in that time, your mind is not able to engage with thoughts that randomly pop up. Doing that over an extended period of time, let's say 30 minutes to an hour, during your nighttime routine, will help your mind switch down to a lower level of activity. That means that when you go to bed, you're clearly more calm than before, and you're able to just be in tune with your body as you fall asleep. Finally, and this will have been mentioned multiple times, we need to get rid of our electronic devices a couple hours before bed. So during this nighttime routine, we are going to isolate ourselves from the online world. The reason for that is that when we engage with online content, a lot of the time it is through social media, and it is engineered to always engage your mind and promote a high level of mental activity. Now, that's not very good when we're trying to sleep, because a high mental activity corresponds with a longer time that we need to get to bed. We need to prevent that, and we need to tackle the problem at the root, which means that we need to take out our electronic devices from our nighttime. The big issue, of course, once you started implementing it is, well, what should I do next? The reality is that you will not have mastered all of this nighttime routine stuff from the get-go. It takes a lot of time to figure out what suits you. You're going to be trying many different things, and some routines make you feel better and more ready to go into your resting period, and some will make you feel a little bit more uncomfortable. But of course, you won't know that necessarily unless you've tried it. The most important thing is that you do not stop there, and you experiment a little bit with what you got. Don't keep the structure rigid, but learn to manipulate small parts of it to change how the nighttime routine affects you. And once you've done that enough times, you will start getting into the habit of adjusting your nighttime routine to help you release all of that mental activity as fast as possible. Sometimes it will be difficult to know where to go, but the best thing that we can do right now is to just make any change, because any change is better than no change. Of course, you'll have to document what these changes do to you, and that you can do through a journal of some sort, or just writing things down, having a log. Once you've identified the patterns of what works for you and what doesn't work for you, you will get to a nighttime routine that really works for you in the way that you want it. Well, that's all that I really have to say about this topic. I mean, I'm not very experienced in it to suggest anything very concrete, but of course I'm learning, and as long as I'm learning, I feel happy about it, and I'm happy if you guys take away sort of a foundation of understanding about routines where you can actually do your own research and experimentation. That's really what I want, because the best knowledge that we get is the knowledge that we craft ourselves. But thank you so much for listening. I hope that this does resonate to some extent with you guys. Have a great time. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, stay safe, and if you want to support, of course, go throw down a comment, like the video, subscribe if you haven't. Of course, there's no obligation to do so, but I would really appreciate it. And if you want to share this video because what I've said is helpful to you, then feel free to do that as well. Until next time, guys, see ya.